Hey guys, it's Smight, and as you already saw in the title today, I'm going to talk about Monster Hunter Wilds. And I don't want to beat around the bush too much, so let's get straight to the point. Let's get everything good about the game out of the way first. So first of all, the game looks fantastic. It's a treat to the eye, everything is more detailed, everything looks more vibrant, it's just fantastic in comparison to older titles. The gameplay feels good and smooth when not interrupted. But I'm going to talk about that in detail later, so keep on watching. There also have been a lot of quality of life changes, some are better than others, but I personally think that comes down to preferences. Speaking of which, maybe the biggest quality of life change is the focus mode. It's a good addition to the game and it's the next most logical step from the wound mechanic from Monster Hunter World. And it feels super nice to use. It's satisfying when you rip the wounds open from the monster, you're slashing through its body. And yeah, it's just a very decent mechanic and it just makes sense, I think. Also, before I forget to mention, you now collect materials straight through opening the wounds with the focus mode. It's a nice addition and definitely keeps the flow of the hunt going, but it's just a little quality of life change in my opinion. I wouldn't have minded if I still would have been collecting the drops from the monsters while hunting. Next up is the Pocket Claw. It hasn't changed much since Monster Hunter World, but the newest addition is that you can collect materials from further away and on the go. Also, you cannot grapple onto monsters anymore, but I think it is a worth trade for the focus mode. Also, I personally think it is cool, but being honest here, it wouldn't have been a big problem again if it had stayed the same like before. Obviously it is more convenient, but it's not that big of a deal. Let's be real here. I mean, you can now grapple from your Sakri, from your little lizard. Bird up. But I'm just being lazy or what now? I'm a hunter, I can go out and collect, like, okay. But I don't mind that it is in the game either, so it's a nice addition. Let's quickly talk about the map design. I gotta say, I said before, the graphics are wild,
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
And they are just stunning. But the map design is insane. I gotta say, the zones in Wilds feel way smoother compared to World and Rise. Technically, it's still divided into areas, but the transitions are so seamless that it almost feels like a proper open world. Moving around is also way more fluid. Getting from one point to another doesn't break the flow of the hunts, which is super nice, especially during longer hunts. The whole thing just feels more cohesive. Don't get me wrong, it's not full-on open world, but it definitely feels larger and more alive. And honestly, I'm a big fan. Next up is a bit more controversial. It is about the monster's health. Now, I'm not really sure if the overall health of the monsters has been reduced to previous titles, but it absolutely feels like it. There have been many discussions on Reddit and other forums if that is even the case, but it seems like that the monsters can't cope with the new implemented mechanics, like the focus mode. Maybe they've changed it so that it's more appealing to the mainstream, but I don't know. It feels a lot more easier. I personally think that this is a problem and that you mostly feel way too OP during the whole game and the story, and I hope that there will be some form of balancing adjustments in the future, but I guess that's a point where only time will tell. But speaking about mainstream, let's talk about the story. I think that the story is absolutely more mainstream focused than in previous titles, but I do think in a good way, and we're gonna get to that later on. But before, let's try to stay as neutral as possible and get all the facts of this story right. The cinematography is insanely good and the visuals have been turned up significantly from Monster Hunter World. It's just insane, like some scenes are set so well that I literally thought this is like a movie. It's insanely good, especially with the new graphics and all of the physics and how the characters look. I also really love how the characters look in general, and they used motion capture for many animations. And there are a lot of improvements of the visuals, especially when you think about how your character behaves in combination with physics, and I really love that attention to detail. I mean, I'm still in awe when I see how my character gets slapped away by something like the arc belt and he just splashes against the wall and drops down. It's something so satisfying, and I'm already a really big fan of realism, and when something like that, a series that I really love and adore, like Monster Hunter, implements that into its whole visual design, it's just like, it's a treat to my eye. It's very, very, very cool. I love that detail. I love all about it. I love how the characters move. I love how the sand behaves, how they get dirty, how they get watery, how they fly away differently on certain impacts, like if you're getting hit from the left, hit from the right, get uppercutted in the air and splash on the floor. I really love that. So keep that in mind. It's a really good addition. Now back to the story again. I personally think that the story is interesting and the characters are as well. But, oh man, Nata is such a weird character. He had some very questionable changes throughout the whole story, and he sometimes even does a 180-degree turn in his opinions and his behavior. I mean, yeah, he's basically just a child, and he does have kind of a tragic past, let's be real here, but it made absolutely no sense to me at all, and maybe that's just on me. I don't know. Curse me, but I think this character was a cool idea, but he is annoying. And I wish it wouldn't be like this. At least, I don't know. Again, write in the comments how you feel about this character, but I think he's just annoying, and I would have loved if that wouldn't be the case. But coming back to the idea of the story being more mainstream, it's an important point. I absolutely think of it in a good way and not in a bad one like in many other incidents. And I think that the story teaches a lot about the whole idea of what Monster Hunter is to newer players, especially when explaining certain mechanics. For example, there had been a situation where they explained hardened monsters, and these are one of the few things I thought were explained very well to newer players. During the story, they tell you that these monsters are hardened through battles and are covered in scars, which tell their story of their fight for survival, which directly signals that these will be tougher to fight against directly to the player. And to be honest, I already knew hardened monsters through earlier games of the series, but I never thought about it in that way. And since then, it made way more sense to me personally and became more than just a mechanic to increase the difficulty. And I loved that. I absolutely loved that. Keeping that in mind, that it offers a good explanation of the world of Monster Hunter, it may even be the best introduction to the series yet. And especially for people that want to check the series out, at least in my opinion. Now, before you rush to grab your wallet and buy yourself a copy, let's address the elephant in the room that you may even already have heard about in other videos. As I mentioned before, the gameplay feels super good and it's insanely satisfying when you hit a monster with your big chunk of a sword. Normally, the sentence would end here, but sadly, it doesn't. The gameplay of Wilds has one major flaw. It feels very, very good when it works. Because the game's optimization is so bad and I don't even know why. At times it runs so smooth as if it was made to be perfectly fitting for my PC. And it plays like heaven. But then as soon as I enter a camp, for example, I feel like I'm playing on a computer from the last century. And to be honest, I don't know how this could happen. I knew things looked cooked bad when they released their recommended specs for PC, but I dared to have hope that Capcom would drastically improve the performance since the beta. Especially since normally Capcom's optimizations worked really well in the past. Of course, speaking from my own experience here. And the funny thing is, I can even play with ray tracing on Wilds, which normally makes games unplayable for me. It doesn't look good, but it works. So it's honestly a mystery to me why it is like that. And don't get me wrong here, the game is definitely playable and for most parts it runs well, but at times it can freak out of nowhere, which is even more confusing because it clearly worked out fine just a few minutes ago. But in general, Monster Hunter Wilds offers an easy introduction to the series, which is underlined with a phenomenal cinematography and stunning visuals. Again, its gameplay is super satisfying when it's not interrupted by stutters, lags or else, and once these optimization problems are fixed, Wilds would be nearly a perfect game for me. And even though the health of the monsters has been reduced and the game does feel a bit easier because of it, I don't see it as much of a problem because, as all veteran Monster Hunter fans know, the real endgame starts to come with the title updates. Speaking of which, the first title update released at the beginning of this April. And the overall content is super fun. Mitsune, I don't know how to speak it out in English, I'm not fluent, it's not my first language, sorry for that. And Tempered Monsters, yes, that was the name. Even though these additions are super fun, it somehow feels like the performance feels like it has gotten even worse. And it's impossible to think about it because it really didn't run well. But when putting everything on max settings, the game runs so bad. But the funny thing is, when I changed the shadows to literally medium settings, one lower, it somehow runs as smooth as butter. And again, it is but a mystery to me. So let's head to the conclusion. The biggest question would be, would I recommend you to buy Monster Hunter Wilds, even though it has certain flaws? I would absolutely recommend it, yes. Especially if you never played Monster Hunter before. As I already said, I think that Wilds is maybe the most beginner-friendly Monster Hunter in the series. And if you ever consider to get into the series and grab yourself a copy, I think you should definitely do it. Also, a little side note, I don't know if console players even encountered the same performance issues as PC players did. So if you're considering to get the game on console, you may not even have the same problems that I have. So definitely keep that in mind when you're buying. Normally it would be typical to do a rating for the game now that you have talked about. But to be honest, I thought about it, but it feels kinda cringe to do it. So yeah, make up your own mind when you search up the game, when you look at gameplay, or when you have the chance to test it out. And yeah, just look for yourself. I think it is a very good game and it's a good opportunity to get into the series. But yeah, you have to make up your own mind and if you want to buy it or not. Anyways, this is the end of the video. So thank you so much for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this video or thought it was helpful, I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel. Take care, I'll hopefully see you in the next one, and happy hunting!
No!